Hi, and welcome to the Maybe I Can podcast. I'm your host, Debbie Weiss, and thank you so much for joining me today. Every week, I feel like I'm excited to talk to you about a particular topic. But when I was thinking about this episode, I realized at first, I thought, what does this really mean? And what do I really know about this? And then when I started really brainstorming, I realized, wow, this is something I think I never put a term to it, if that makes sense. And of course, it doesn't because you have no idea what I'm talking about because I didn't tell you. Today, we are talking about identity. And I think there's something about that term that I don't know, is off putting or I don't really understand. And maybe you feel the same way. You don't have to wait until caregiving ends, retirement arrives, the kids move out, or life settles down. You don't have to wait for any of those things to reconnect with yourself. Identity isn't something you find after all these responsibilities disappear. It's something you nurture alongside of them. And I didn't know that, and I didn't understand that. I've told this story so many times. I've talked about it a lot. But I do that because it's so crucial to really understanding and beginning to understand what I had done and what I had lost in my life. It was a reawakening moment. And I'm talking about my 50th birthday. I won't tell you the whole story because if you have been listening or if you read my books, you've heard it before. But it does bear repeating because every time I actually tell this story, I've told it hundreds of times, it ignites something in me. And the deal was that when I was turning 50, I had been caring for my father for 30 years. He had passed away the year before. I had been caring for my children, my oldest who had some extra needs, and my husband, and my team members, and my customers, and everybody else under the sun, other than myself, which I did not know that at 50. Sure, I knew I was taking care of everyone else, and that was what I was meant to do, and I was okay with that. But I was exhausted, and I was overwhelmed. I was resentful. I had so many different emotions that I didn't understand, and I didn't understand where they were coming from. And my friends insisted that we go away for a weekend to celebrate my 50th birthday. And I really resisted, even though I wanted to go, because I couldn't imagine how my family would get along without me for 3 short days, which, by the way, they did. While we were away celebrating, and in hindsight still, it was the best weekend of my life because the rest was so needed, and it was the first time in my adult life where I only had to think about myself, and it was honestly overwhelming because when people asked me, "Where do you want to go eat?" or "What do you want to do today?" I was looking over my shoulder because I wasn't used to someone asking me what I wanted. I was the one always asking everyone else what they wanted. And so on that trip, one night we were sitting around and one of my friends said, "Okay, let's go around the table and talk about our goals and our dreams." And I couldn't answer. When it came to me, I had no idea what the answer was. I knew what my dreams were for my kids, but for myself, I felt like I'm 50. That ship has sailed. I don't know what I dreamt. I certainly have no goals or dreams moving forward. I'm just kind of getting through day to day. And I answered those questions really for years for everyone else trying to anticipate what they wanted. what my father needed, what my husband needed, what my kids needed, what my business needed from me, my employees, my customers. But I had never stopped to ask, what about me? What do I want? And what are my dreams for the remainder of my life? The problem wasn't that I had all these responsibilities, right? Because that's what life is. We always have responsibilities. The problem was that somewhere along the way, I disappeared from that list. I forgot that I also have a responsibility to myself. And it happens slowly, right? Nobody just says, oh, think today I'm going to forget who I am. No, of course not. It happens gradually. We have one responsibility, then another, then another. And the years pass, and you think to yourself, oh, I'll think about me in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And the next thing you know, like me, someone says, what do you want to do? Or what do you want to do for fun? Or you find fun? And you don't know. Or maybe someone says, what are you excited about? And nothing at all immediately comes to your mind. Maybe you're the caregiver who can recite every medication schedule that your loved one is on, but you can't name a hobby that you enjoy. Or you're the parent who knows everything about their children, but has forgotten what you enjoy. Or the professional business owner, you can solve everyone else's problem, but you have no idea what sounds fun to you. Losing your identity doesn't happen because you're caring and we're caring people and we're caring for other people. It happens because we stop paying attention to ourselves. People often say, I don't know. The question is, who am I? And that question, I think it's overwhelming. But instead of asking, who am I? Let's try asking, what feels like me? And you don't discover that all at once. You have to pay attention to the clues. And that's how we kind of discover who we are, one quote unquote clue at a time. Recently, it's almost 3.5 months now, 4 months, since I had to put Yogi, my Maltipoo, down. Oh gosh, it's still even hard to talk about this. He was 13 and a half years old, and he was by my side every second, and he was there for not only me, but my whole family when we went through so many difficult times. And I actually remember convincing Gary, my husband, to get him. Not that my husband loved dogs, it had nothing to do with that, but he just felt at the time, I remember him saying, I don't want to get a dog because I know how hard it is to lose a dog. Because as a child, he had had several dogs, and it's incredibly painful. And I said to him, well, you could say that about everyone. Then maybe you're not going to want to have a friend or a loved one or anything, because eventually you'll lose them. And that's so painful. And of course, that's true. But I said to him, what about what you get from that love that you feel for someone or something else? You're missing out on that because you're just trying to protect yourself from the pain of the grief down the road. We got Yogi because I felt like it would be helpful for Sam, my oldest son. And it was. He was such a gift, but not just for Sam, but for all of us. And Yogi was with me when we went through so many difficult times, not just with Sam, but with Gary. And he was my partner. But what wound up happening was, gosh, it was like a month after Gary died. Yogi almost died. Oh, I mean, that was just too much to handle, felt like too much to handle. But thankfully, he didn't. And from that point on, he required, he had to take quite a bit of medication and other things developed, just like in people, right? I mean, he was getting older and it seemed like I was always taking him to the vet or the emergency animal hospital. And he was taking, oh, I don't even remember. The poor dog had to take at least 20 pills a day over 4 different times. And I mean, I became his caregiver. Really, I was tied to his medication schedule and his routines. And I had to plan my life around, okay, if I wanted to go do something that was fun, I had to make sure that somebody was there to give Yogi his pills and let him out and take care of him. And everything had to be coordinated around his care. And then when the day came that he was no longer with me, grief aside, because that's not the point of this episode, I didn't immediately feel free because it felt very, very strange not to have to worry about him. And let me just say that he came right on the heels of the caregiving I had done for Gary and the caregiving that I had done for my sons, but specifically my older son who has issues, and the caregiving for my dad. He passed away, Yogi, and it is literally the first time in my adult life that I'm not caring for someone else in such an intense way, right? I still have my kids. They're in their 20s. Sam doesn't need as much care. It's different. But I didn't immediately feel free. It felt uncertain because for years, my identity was all about being needed. And suddenly there was this space that wasn't being filled. And it's like for years you think freedom is what you want. But then when I got it, I realized, oh my goodness, now what? It was a scary feeling. And I think this happens when caregiving ends or your children leave home or you begin retirement or your spouse dies or any kind of major role change. So how do we come back to ourselves and figure out what is our identity? Again, not asking who am I, but what is it? What is it that I enjoy, let's say? And let's talk about these clues that we need to be listening to. So clue number 1 that I want you to think about is, what do I miss? So what kinds of things do you miss? Maybe it's reading or traveling or something creative, painting. Maybe it's exercising, playing music. Whatever that is for you, what do you miss? These thoughts aren't random. They're actually clues, and we have to pay attention to them. Clue number 2, what am I curious about? I've told you before, I started playing Mahjong. For years, I've been curious about it. But I kept saying, there's no class or there's no one to teach me that lives around here. I always was I'd be looking if I got a brochure or something. Boy, do they teach Mahjong? When is it? Oh, it's during the day. I can't go to that. I was always curious. What else was I curious about? Or what else are you curious about? Maybe it's learning a language or gardening or photography. Identity often whispers before it becomes a shout that is so obvious. Here's another clue. What did I love before life got so busy? Oh my goodness, I can't even remember what it feels like or what it used to feel like when life wasn't busy. What did you enjoy as a child? What made you lose track of time? When I think about that question, I can think about being in my room as a teenager playing 45s, a 45 record, a single, and you never played the flip side, or at least I barely played the flip side. I'd listen to it once and then decide, nope. And I just keep playing that same 45 over and over again because I loved it and I wanted to learn every word, and I could do it for hours and hours and hours. I got to tell you, I don't listen to music anymore. I listen to podcasts, I listen to books, and all those things are good. I was just in the dentist's office before recording this. And in this particular dentist's office, I don't know maybe it's yacht rock or whatever, but oh my goodness, it's all the songs that I listened to as a kid and forgot about. And actually, I walked in and they were playing this song that was one of my favorite songs when I was a teenager. And it's not something that you hear all the time. And it just made me smile. Why don't I listen to music anymore? I could go and listen to that particular channel. Why not? Because life's busy and I don't think about it. What did you used to dream about? Most of us, I don't know about you, but for decades, I never asked myself any of these questions. And clue number 4, what makes you say, I wish I could do that? When you see someone doing something and you think that, I think, I wish I could do that. And I'll tell you, I'm going to share something with you that I haven't told anyone else out loud. This part, people know. I've always loved dancing. If you read my memoir, you know there's a story about how I got embarrassed when I was in a dance class and I was 5 years old and I ran out and I never took a dance class again. But I've always loved dancing, and for exercising, I'm like drawn, and my favorite things to do are jazzercise and Zumba because I'm dancing and it's something that I love. And I think on Instagram, maybe, I saw that there was this dance troupe, but you couldn't belong unless you were over 60 years old. And they actually perform at places. Maybe it is at a minor league baseball game, 7th inning stretch, or beforehand. I don't know. But they perform all over. And I would watch the videos over and over again. I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks like so much fun. I want to do that. And they're based out of New York, and I'm in New Jersey. And I got up the nerve and I actually reached out and sent an email. And I got an email back, and they said that we will be having auditions the end of September. And I got so excited, thinking to myself, what can I do? What do I need to do to prepare? I have no idea. I don't know what the auditions are like, but I'm so excited. Just the idea of being part of a dance troupe and I can go and dance at places, oh my gosh, just beyond excitement. Scary as anything, because I do have imposter syndrome, because I'm looking at some of these people thinking, okay, they have always been dancing, right? They've been dancing their whole lives, taking dance classes and doing all the things, and I haven't. But I thought, look, I won't know until I try. And then what happens? I start having some difficulties, pain in my neck and back and nerve pain, and I might possibly have to have surgery. And I'm not going to be able to audition in September. And that's devastating. But I'll tell you what, it's also motivating, because mark my words, I'll go through whatever I need to do, surgery and more injections, whatever it is, and I'm going to get myself better. And whenever that next audition is, I will be showing up. And For the first time in a long time, I have found myself excited about something that wasn't productive, right? I don't want to dance because it'll help my business. I don't want to dance because it'll make me money. I want to dance because it makes me happy. And that is identity. It's not about achievement. It's not about caregiving. It's not about responsibility. It is pure joy. And just talking to you about it, if you can hear, if you're not watching, just makes me smile from ear to ear. What's interesting is that when I started thinking about this dance troupe, I realized it wasn't really about dancing, and it is, but it's giving myself permission to explore a part of me that's been sitting quietly in the background for decades. And that got me thinking about another identity shift that I've been navigating over the last few years, and that's becoming a widow. For most of my adult life, I've been part of a couple. I'm not an I, but a we. We've made a lot of decisions together. We planned together. We worried together. And then suddenly, one day, I woke up and now it's not we, but me. And that feels strange. Now, look, again, I've done an episode about grief. I'm not here to talk about grief. As time's gone on, and now I've been a widow for 3.5 years, I'll tell you, it feels so strange. There's so many things that are so strange about it. I've talked before on the podcast about just how hard it is when you fill out a form and now you have to fill in your emergency contact, which was always so obvious. Obviously, it's Gary. And now there is no Gary. Who's my emergency contact? But when I'm filling out these forms, I almost twitch when it comes to marital status. And I'm always relieved where widow is a choice, because the idea of checking off that box that says single is so uncomfortable to me. I don't want to be single. I've never wanted to be single. There's something that terrifies me. And I know, thinking back when I was younger and I had zero self-confidence, and all I wanted was to be a we, part of a partnership, because I was terrified of being alone. And now, today, that I'm no longer a we, and I've spent decades worrying about everything else, or I should say everyone else, there's something surprisingly peaceful about only having to worry or think about me. Now, I'm not saying, of course, as a parent, as a mom, I'm always worried about my kids. I know that will never end. I see my mother still worried about me, so I know that won't change. But the difference is, honestly, now I think to myself, I kind of like this new identity of me. And when people ask, do I want to meet someone else and not necessarily remarry, but have a partner? Of course, there are things that are appealing. It would be nice to have someone to do things with and go out to dinner with and vacation with and all the things. But I kind of making my own decisions. I kind of like deciding what I want my weekends to look like and not having to worry about somebody else. And it's just really interesting that this is something that I was terrified of when I was younger. And now I'm embracing it. It's really one of the surprises of this season of my life that now I'm able to discover strengths and preferences that I never knew I had. And it's empowering. But how do you find yourself while you're still in that season of responsibility, possibly when you're still caregiving? Here's the thing. Stop waiting. I made that mistake. Don't do it. There will always be another responsibility. You think that you're going to wait for life to calm down, and you may be waiting forever. So what do you need to do? You need to pay attention to what energizes you. It doesn't have to be what you're good at, but what energizes you. And then make sure to protect just one thing that is purely yours. Do not sacrifice it, whether it's a class, a hobby, a book club, a dance class, or a mahjong group. Maybe it's a walk, just one thing that's yours. And if you don't know what that is, or you want to discover something else, follow your curiosity. You need one clue. Start with one clue that we talked about before. And don't forget, don't ask, who am I? Ask, what makes me come alive? Look, I just actually recorded a podcast as writing my memoir came up. And I'm going to remind you that I wrote my memoir while my husband was dying, which seems so ridiculous. Even when I say it now, how could I have done that? People must think I wasn't there for my husband. But there was nothing further from the truth. Writing this memoir gave me the energy to then be there for my husband because I was doing something that energized me personally. And so when I was writing that memoir and my life was so crazy with so many responsibilities and so many unknowns, I made sure every day to schedule in time to write. Whether it was at 6 a.m. before my husband got up, or if he was in the hospital, I brought the computer with me. And I wrote when he was sleeping or going down for a test. And sure, some days I could only write for 5 or 10 minutes, and other days an hour, but it didn't matter. The key was I was intentional about it, and I kept my word to myself. I didn't let everything that was going on in my life, I didn't let it stop me. But you have to go. No one's going to do this for you. You have to be intentional about it. So I want you to think, what do I miss? What am I curious about? What did I love before life got so busy? What sounds like fun, or what have I always wanted to try? What clues have I been ignoring? So your challenge for this week is take one small action. Send the email like I did asking about, how do I join this dance troupe? Sign up for the class, buy the book, make the phone call to inquire, research the group. Don't commit to a whole new life. Just follow one clue. Be curious about one thing. Back in Bermuda at 50, I couldn't answer the question, what do you want? But today, I can. I can at least answer part of it. And one answer, I want to dance. I want to be part of that troupe. And for now, that's enough. Because the goal isn't to reinvent yourself. The goal is to reconnect with yourself, with who you are deep down. You don't have to wait until life stops needing things from you to start paying attention to what makes you come alive. I would love to know the answer to that. What makes you come alive? Send me an email at debbie@debbierweiss.com or DM me on Instagram at debbie.r.weiss. Remember, this is your one and only life. Make the most of it. That's what I got for you for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again next week.